Hello, avid readers, book nerds, or casual observers. Welcome to the Read Along, brought to you by the Lit Round Table. I'm Anna.
And I'm Joseph, and this is our read along of the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Welcome to week 6 of the 5th season.
The finale.
The final episode.
And boy oh boy, what an episode this is going to be, because what a final section of the book.
The climax, one would call it.
Mm-hmm, indeed. And some falling action.
Yes, the falling action. The 3 paragraphs of falling action.
It was more than that.
I know, it just, the last chapter was really short compared to the second to last chapter. It made me laugh. But I feel like that's just a thing in books that I hadn't really noticed before. I feel like just books, the climax happens so close to the end, and there's not as much of a falling action as, like, I don't know, some movies or TV shows. It depends on the movie or show, but you know what I mean?
I feel like if you're comparing this to The Lord of the Rings, it's not fair.
Oh.
Because the falling action for The Lord of the Rings is immense.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you can't really compare those.
What?
The falling action is like an hour long.
Yeah. Yes.
More, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. Yeah, so what a book. What a ride.
I need to start off with a I told you. I was right. Beanoff is Tonki. They are the same person.
They are. Indeed.
And also Tonki,
Kudos.
I feel bad for her. When we get more of like what happened to her, it's like, oh my gosh.
She's like lost her mind trying to figure out what this. Oh, also though, I was right about the obelisks going into the sockets.
Sort of. They're created by the sockets.
So like, but they like fit into them.
Yes, they fit into them.
Yeah.
But
yes.
They're made.
It wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about what happened, and then we'll dive into like theories for the next book, because I have some, my mind is swimming with some different ideas of what the heck happened here.
Well, so do we want to start with Essen or Cyanite? Well, should we do our chapter titles first?
Let's do the chapter titles, and then I feel like we should do Cyanite and then Essen, since, you know, chronologically that's how it goes.
Sure.
So.
Okay, so we had the interlude, which is just called Interlude.
Right.
And then chapter 20 was Cyanite stretched and snapped back. 21, you're getting the band back together. 22, Cyanite fractured. And 23, you're all you need.
Mm-hmm. So actually, we should start with the interlude. now that we mention it.
I don't even remember what happened in the interlude because the climax was so crazy.
I know, right? I'm literally just flipped back to the interlude so that I could re-jog my memory of what happened. I did get the first clue of like, so the interlude was like addressing us as you again.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last section is, so while you rested, those are the forces that gathered round. Eventually they began their advance. So it's like, and, you know, reveal later of like who is actually talking to us as you.
Right.
That was a trip.
That was a trip, because that happens at the end of a Cyanide chapter.
Indeed. So yeah, it was just talking about how there's different factions, and there's different factions of like the Guardians and the Stone Eaters and all this stuff, and there's like there's lots of different powers at work here. Mm-hmm. But yeah,
we also got confirmation that Hoa is in fact the Stone Eater that was inside of that obelisk.
Yeah, because they mentioned how they met them and then they like followed them and fought other people off, which is scary. Fought others off, like you fought off other Stone Eaters, or you fought off.
It literally
like,
could mean
Guardians. That's scary.
It could mean anything.
But anyway, so Cyanite.
Yes.
starting at like the beginning of the cyanide stuff, she wants to live the pirate life. And I don't blame her, because
she
that
wants
seems
to be
fun.
on the boat. She wants to do all the things. She's had the baby. We have Koru now. Who's also like a wicked strong or originy user.
Corundum. Every time I read his name, I wanted to read it as like conundrum.
Yeah, I appreciate that they shortened it to just Koru. It's much easier.
Yeah.
Cyanide, Innis.
Cyanide, Inon. Yeah.
And Alabaster have quite the
Dynamic.
They're like not a throuple but they are, because even though Alabaster and Cyanide are not like romantically involved with each other, they still have like some amount of affection for each other, even if they're not.
I don't think they're physically like attracted to well, they're not physically attracted to each other like in and of itself.
Right.
But like I'm not going to get like too graphic on the pod, but they get pretty graphic. The book is pretty graphic about exactly how far the attraction goes and what they enjoy seeing. Right. So it's
But I mean, like, she makes a point of saying that they're not a throuple because she and Alabaster don't have a relationship. But
right.
I think you can make an argument. They are co-parenting Koru because he's their kid. And they do have a certain level of care for each other.
Right. For sure. They are, I mean,
they're very entwined. All of them.
They all share a house and sleep in the same bed, and they all parent Koru together.
Right. And they call it like their home.
Yeah.
Like, and each other, they call them like their group, their family. So.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
But she does convince Inon to take her onto the pirate ship. Mm-hmm. And we've had a shocking amount of like nautical themed things happen in the books this year for the read along.
Right. It's very strange. I'm not sure how that happened.
We've got pirates in this one. It was very pirate heavy in the Gentleman Bastard stuff.
Yeah.
Like we've just had a lot of like nautical things, and I'm here for it because I enjoy that that genre.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Yo ho, yo ho. Alabaster is dealing with the emotions of Cyanide leaving him and Koru alone on the island because Alabaster can't go on boats because he'll throw up everywhere.
Right.
Right. And that was the dynamic is so interesting. Like it was really interesting to see her emotions of like feeling worthless. Like she doesn't feel like she's a good mom. Mm-hmm. She feels like Alabaster and Inon are better parents than she is, and Alabaster can teach the kid more about orogeny than she can because he's a 10-ringer. Mm-hmm. You know, he's like this all-powerful origin user. So she's feeling a little worthless.
Very inadequate feeling, yeah.
Yeah, so she wants to join in on the pirate rating so that she can feel like she's contributing in some way because she, like, her abilities still far outclass what they refer to as the ferals, the origin users who haven't gone through fulcrum training. Mm-hmm. She can do some crazy stuff that they never even knew they could do. So, right. So yeah, she ends up going on the pirate ship,
and then discovers that the coastal town that they had been in has basically just become a volcano.
Yeah, like we knew that based on previous like things in the book, but it like up close is different.
She was being confronted with it.
Yeah, that she like caused it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, you add that onto the feelings of inadequacy. Mm-hmm. And then she also feels like she killed all those people in the comm. Mm-hmm. And before that happens, she also sinks 2 ships on their pirating
Right.
voyage, and so she killed all those people. So she just has a moment of like, no, I'm going to fix something, and she undoes a volcano.
Right. Very rashly makes that decision without considering the fact that she's on a boat surrounded by water. And what does that look like for everybody else on the boat?
Seismic activities causing the waters to churn.
Right. And oh my gosh, the description of how she cuts off the volcano in the book, of like how she's moving the bedrock. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
it was
she's
very
like
cool.
folding it back over onto itself over and over again. Yeah.
It was
like
a very cool
interlocking.
description.
Yeah.
And then she kind of comes to, and everything is going sideways very quickly. She's like caused a tsunami.
Yeah.
But fortunately, Alabaster, is super powerful, and he can witness. He can like feel that this is happening, and he somehow
They were
stops
still
it.
within his range,
Apparently,
so he just stops it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, could Alabaster just have undone the volcano from where they were on the island?
Great question.
Maybe that's a little too extreme, but
Great question.
But then she sees a flash of burgundy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I knew that was Bad News Bears.
Yeah. Yep.
The Guardians were watching.
Mm-hmm.
And she even says, like, weird that they didn't fix this, because this could, like, set off a season. Weird that no one has come along to, like, undo this massive volcano.
Mm-hmm.
They were waiting to see if they would.
Mm-hmm. And then the next cyanide chapter starts, and the description of the first part of the chapter, it starts off with something like, "This was the day that the world ended." I'm like, oh, we've had this before.
Yeah. It talked about how beautiful of a day it was.
Yeah. And it is beautiful. Like the first half of the chapter, or the first whatever of the chapter. They're home. They're comfortable. Inan and Koru are sleeping, and Alabaster and Cyanide have this sweet conversation where Alabaster asks her if she'd ever consider having more kids, because he's finally got what he's always wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't feel this need to go off and be a hero or save people anymore, because he's got everything he wants. And they have kind of a, well, this can be something we consider. And it's very sweet.
Yeah, I feel like Cyanide still has some reservations.
She did.
But overall, it was a really sweet exchange. I think she still has this urge to try to fix Fulcrum and try to like undo some of that craziness. But Alabaster is much more resigned. It's like the person who has been fighting against like systemic issues for a really long time versus the person who just found out that they exist.
Yes.
Is very,
very, very similar to that.
It's like, man, I'm a veteran in this fight and I'm so burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, no, we can fix it. We can do it. He's like, nah, I've been trying to fix this for years, dude.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And then it all changes.
When the Guardians show up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty wild.
It was very, like, just imagining Alabaster at the top of the island, like, creating rings of stone and, like, hurling boulders at people. He's so, like, such, like, a wizard move, like, at the top of his wizard tower, just, like lightning bolting people, just, like...
Yeah, it felt very Toph to me. Like, it felt a lot like Toph in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah. It was an impressive action sequence describing how they were trying to deal with these 4 Guardian ships that showed up. But it all ended up culminating in they have guns now, and they shot at Alabaster with a cannon, and yeah, he didn't do too well. And then his Stone Eater friend decided it was time to get him out of there.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Which that was really disturbing.
That's freaky.
And he makes Cyanide promise that she will do whatever it takes to keep Koru from being taken by Fulcrum. And the minute he said that, I was like, well, great.
Bye, Koru.
This is going to suck. And it did.
It did. It did suck.
It did.
The Guardians are so terrifying.
They are awful.
When the second that it was one of them was described as being shirtless, I was like, oh, that's just to maximize the chances of skin-to-skin contact.
Absolutely.
That's exactly it. Man, because I forget that Anon is actually
right, because he's a Raga, but he's not nearly as powerful as Cyanide or Alabaster, so he hasn't really had to do anything since they've been around.
But then the Guardian touches him, and I was like, oh no, I forgot. He's actually an Origin, and then he just explodes.
He's undone. He crumples, and it's disgusting.
Like, on a molecular level, just turns him into mush. And that was terrifying. And awful, because I liked him.
I liked him too. It's funny because not funny like haha, but because as we unraveled that Essen and Cyanide are the same person, I was like, oh, well, something really terrible has to happen to get Cyanide from the point that we see her at now to Essen.
Yeah.
And boy.
I had kind of... See, it did help that since I had that theory of them being the same person for a while, I had kind of written off a lot of the people that Cyanide interacts with as, like, they're gonna die. So I had, ever since, like, that theory hatched, I have been kind of, like, expecting, like, Alabaster... Well, not Alabaster, because I thought he broke the world in half, but, like, everyone else besides Alabaster, I was like, they're fair game to get axed. And, yeah, that is what we see.
Yeah. And then her Guardian shows up.
Ugh.
Shafa, still around, still kicking, still awful.
I knew it. When like the two Guardians stood on the ship with the Origin person, I was like, oh, what are those? What are those? It's Shafa. I can feel it in my bones.
And it was.
He calls her Damia. I felt like Will Smith at the Oscars, like, keep her name out your mouth.
Yeah. Well, and she yells at him, that's not my name.
Well, he calls her
Cyanide,
and then she says, that's not my name.
Yeah.
But I'm like, don't you dare.
It's all just so confusing.
Emotionally manipulative, physically abusive
psychopaths.
My gosh.
It's wild. And so she decides, oh my gosh, and I knew this was coming. And even so, the way that N.K. Jemisin wrote the scene and the rationalization that Cyanide goes through of it's better for your child to not exist than to become a slave gave me instant goosebumps and just like overwhelming sadness.
Ugh.
Because you can see how easy it is to get to that rationale.
I mean, all of it logically makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so heartbreaking. And like, I can't help but think of like real world things with this book because it's so obviously a commentary on like African Americans and slavery, and like they call them ragas, and it's very much a commentary on that. And so you just think about like, man, how many mothers like threw their babies off of slave ships on their way here to try to like avoid that fate for their kids, or like how many other people have been put in that situation where they ended their own kid's life to save them from a life of like horror.
in trafficking
Well,
and yeah.
yeah, especially in this case where in the book it's like she's afraid the kid's going to become a node maintainer. Um,
I mean,
which is
all
a
evidence
very
points to that being the case.
yeah. So
And
that would
the
have been
Guardians are so grossly excited to see that she and Alabaster had a baby.
yeah. Yeah.
They're like giddy about it.
They're like annoyed that Alabaster's gone and kind of taken aback when she says that it was a Stone Eater that took him.
Yeah.
Like they were just kind of surprised. They got shooketh.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that their reaction to seeing the baby was like they didn't care about Alabaster anymore. They're like, oh, the baby will work. That's fine.
Yeah.
Give us the kid.
Gross. So gross. So she tries to plunge herself into the obelisk like she did that last time.
And it's like what she did with the ships, with like skewering them on bedrock, only on a mass scale. She just like earth spikes shoot up from the ground and destroys like everything. Just destroys all the ships. A couple survivors pick her up out of the wreckage. Baby's gone though. But yeah. And it's not like we never saw the baby, like unconfirmed. No, like the baby was floating face down in the water. Like she gave us that sentence so that we wouldn't be. Yeah. Because I was wondering if maybe that would happen and then be a reveal later. Like the kid would come back later on. But no, face down in the water, that kid's gone. That's so sad.
But all of this is told to us from it's still in Cyanite's chapter.
Oh, man.
But it's not Cyanite.
Man.
It switches to Hoa.
It's Hoa. He's the one that's been talking to us the whole time. And my mind is Hoa broke my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's a part, so, where is it? Talking about the fellow survivors found her, take her to the mainland. There she was, wandering lost, losing herself for 2 long years, but not alone, for that is when I found her. The moment of the obelisk's pulse was the moment in which her presence sang across the world, a promise, a demand, an invitation too enticing to resist. Many of us converged on her then, so it was other Stone Eaters, 100%. But I'm the one who found her first. I fought off the others and trailed her, watched her, guarded her. I was glad when she found the little town called Tiramo. Introduced myself to her eventually. There was a part where he says, I'm trying to find where it is exactly, if only you'd realize who you are, or who you are. So I'm like, is there some kind of like identity to Essen that we don't know of yet? Like, is there more to her that we still don't know?
I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that one of the last things that we get from the book is Essen wondering when she will finally know herself. Because when she talks to Alabaster again, which we'll get more into, he struggles with knowing what to call her, even though she's introduced herself as Essen. And she realizes that she also has a hard time knowing who she is.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's had 3 names since we've known her.
I introduced myself to her eventually, finally, 10 years later. It's not the way we usually do things, of course. It is not the relationship with her kind that we normally seek. But she was special. You are special. I told her that I was called Hoa. It's as good a name as any. This is how it began. Listen, learn. This is how the world changed. Maybe it was in the next chapter when it goes to like the second person thing. Like the weird meta shifts where we get things like in parentheses Then he returns his attention to you, parentheses, to her, cyanide, parenthesis. Like, it's like those moments of like looking at the camera lens that's just like, oh, so unnerving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so well written.
Yes. It's so good.
It's somewhere in here, but you remember that too, right? When it's like,
Yeah.
if only she would remember who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's somewhere in there. But
I mean, it does kind of feel like this whole time in the Essen chapters we've been working through some kind of amnesia, because she doesn't recall much about when she was cyanide.
Yeah. I feel like, well, because when her kid died, she shut down and just tried to forget and not think.
Mm-hmm.
So, wouldn't be surprised if that's just a coping mechanism that she has learned.
Mm-hmm.
Compartmentalize.
For sure.
You know, don't think about, just don't think. Just exist.
Just like when we're with cyanide, she doesn't think about Damia.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, that could just be a function of the author trying to, like, keep the secret that they're all the same person. But I suspect that there's something to that as well. That kind of compartmentalization. But
yeah. I think, okay. Getting ahead of ourselves. So that's Cyanide's chapters, and then there's Essence chapters before we get into like the late game Essence stuff. So in the beginning of the Essence chapters, that's like right off the bat, it was like, oh wait, you're Beanoff.
Yeah, she finally puts it together. She has to have these conversations. She goes to Beanoff, and the whole time she's talking to Beanoff or Tonki, she keeps looking at Hoa and thinking, I've got to have that conversation next with him. The Tonki stuff was fascinating.
Yeah, learning about what happened to Beanoff and how they just got kind of quietly disowned from their family.
Yeah, because their family, the leadership class for Fulcrum does not support transgenderism at all.
Yeah.
And,
well, because they interbreed with each other.
Right.
They don't use like the breeder class, which is so gross to say out loud.
Yeah.
But it's
yeah.
But yeah, so there a couple of arranged marriages were flops because of Beanoff's
being a girl.
Yeah, transness, I guess.
Yeah.
But
then
they got to go to college.
Right. And they shipped her off to school and said, be a geomist.
Yeah.
And don't come back.
Which honestly, I feel like Beanoff preferred anyway.
Yes, I think so.
I think that she really flourished in the academic. Well, she flourished. She flew too close to the sun a little bit. Asked too many interesting questions, and kind of managed to ostracize herself from academic circles as well. But that's how she ended up as a crazy lady in the woods.
Right. But she's also been having Essen, Cyanide, Damia followed forever.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is wild. And she had no intention of revealing herself to Essen when she did, except that Hoa turned that thing into a rock, and she was like, I figured I better
just shut up and observe.
Up and be around. Which I thought was so funny. Tonki cracks me up. I think she's great.
Yeah.
She's very good at reading the room.
She gives me Hanji vibes from Attack on Titan.
Ooh, yes. Absolutely. 100%.
And that's kind of a fan, I don't know if it's canon or just like fan headcanon of Hanji being trans also. But
right.
I think it's mostly a headcanon thing. But I like it. And she reminds me a lot of Hanji. So
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I loved Tonki a lot also. And I also liked how Tonki got so excited talking to... Oh, also we got the doctor guy from the original village back.
Yes.
And they interact a little bit, Tonki and him
completely forgot about him. And then they're like, oh, he's so familiar. And I'm like, huh? Wait.
They said his name.
Who is this?
I read his name and I was like, who is this guy? Oh, the doctor from the village. Oh, you mean the guy from like chapter 1 that we never met again?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But Tonki being like, oh, what kind of instruments do you have? I was like, oh yeah, you're itching to brew some more of your like your meds, aren't you? You're like, you're really tired of shaving, aren't you, Tonki?
I mean, fair.
No,
Poor
totally
girl.
fair. It's not. Yeah, I totally, absolutely.
Yeah.
Get the girl her meds. It was just like,
Yeah.
I see you. I see what you're asking about.
Yes.
And I understand.
Yes.
But yeah, then that was interesting. So that was part of the getting the band back together moment. Realizing that Tonki's being off, getting the doctor guy back.
Well, and then it's revealed that Alabaster's there.
Yeah, then Hoa shows up and he's like, oh, hey guys, someone you may know is here. It's like,
And she's like, huh?
dude, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he said something about Corundum or whatever. Yeah. Oh, it's Alabaster. Jeez. He's alive.
But he's dying.
But he is gravely injured. Because
But before we get on to that, we have to talk about how the conversation she has with Hoa. And he reveals that he's been eating these weird little rocks.
Yeah.
And he's being weirdly obtuse about them. And where they came from.
Yeah, because I think he got them from like that geode he hatched out of, because that's what he was munching on when he first came out.
That's what I don't know. Because when she talks to Alabaster and he's been turning into stone, she has the thought, this is what the Stone Eaters eat.
Because he's missing a hand. His limb was turning into stone, and his hand is gone, and it's like a chompy bite mark on his... And
his teeth are also
arm.
missing. He's missing some teeth.
Some of his teeth are turning into stone also.
Yes.
And then Essen remembers like the diamond-like smile that the Stone Eaters have. And she's like, oh, gross. So there's some, I feel like there's some crazy stuff about what's happened to Alabaster from like the island to now that I'm really interested in hearing about, because I feel like that wasn't his friendly Stone Eater that like halfway turned him into stone and took a chunk out of his arm. I feel like...
Ooh, do you think there was more than one?
I think there's Stone Eaters that are like going against each other here, that there's like different factions.
Well, that's for sure true. Because even when they get into the infirmary where Alabaster is with his Stone Eater, whose name she has a name, I can't think of what it is.
It starts with an A. I can never pronounce it in my brain.
Anemone and something like that. And Hoa have like a mini standoff. She's like, not any further. And he's like, I'm only here for her. She's like, I'm only here for her because of him. It's like... Yeah. What?
It's like they're staking their claims.
Yeah.
This is my human. Okay, well, this is my human. Hands off. Yeah, very bizarre. I'm really interested in learning more about the Stone Eaters in future books.
Me too.
But yeah. So, what was I forget where I was before the Hoa thing. Oh, so Alabaster was the person who broke the continent in half.
Yes, he was.
Ding ding, theory confirmed. I'm proud of myself this book for all the theories.
Oh my gosh, we both did really well.
Yeah. The Tonki one was pretty clutch.
Thank you.
Man. And he is not in good shape.
No, not at all.
Like, he's got burns, and he's missing limbs, and it's Essen speculating that some of his organs may be turning into stone. So I'm wondering, like, how much of this is, like, the work of other Stone Eaters, or is this, like, just the effects of of him using too much orogeny to break the continent in half. He's like turning into rock or something.
Do they?
Like, I don't know.
Were the Stone Eaters all orogeny users? The Stone Eaters?
I don't think that's been confirmed, but I don't think it's been confirmed or denied whether or not the Stone Eaters can use it. But well, you have to have. There's that thing in your brain you got to have, the Cecipine thing that it's like a part of your brain that lets them do their weird stuff.
For the orogeny, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I don't know if Stone Eaters would have that necessarily.
I don't know that we've gotten into Stone Eaters' anatomy at all, other than they can move through stone.
I think their heads are just full of marbles.
That was good.
When they walk around, they're like little maracas.
Oh my gosh.
So, Alabaster's back. He's alive for now. He's super beat up. He asks Essence some very pointed questions about like whether she can do it yet, and like all this weird obelisk stuff.
And she's kind of like, "What are you talking about?"
And me, the reader, I'm also like, "What are you talking about?"
Well, we skipped over something when she was having that conversation with Tonki. Tonki mentioned that one of the things that she noticed was that the obelisks started moving quicker towards something.
Right. The obelisks follow them.
Yeah.
That's so creepy.
Yeah. So my wonder is Alabaster asking her if she can tap into the obelisks yet?
Yeah.
But she's basically been living under the radar for the last 10 years, like not doing anything to garner any kind of attention.
And he also like pulls out this, I don't know, obelisk sword.
Yeah.
Like there's this weird sword thing that he pulls out. I have it pulled up. It's so Alabaster's saying you drew on the garnet at Alia, but that one was half dead. You must have used the amethyst at Maov, but that was an extremity. Can you do it at will now? You don't want to understand, but now your eyes are drawn away from the horror that remains of your mentor, your lover, your friend. Notice they said lover.
Mm-hmm. Well, they did have a lot of lover-like relations for a while.
To the side and behind Alabaster, where a strange object rests against the wall of the infirmary. It looks like a glass knife, but the blade is much too long and wide for practical use. It has an enormous handle, perhaps because the blade is so stupidly long, and a crosspiece that will get in the way the first time someone tries to use the thing to cut meat or slice through a knot, and it's not made of glass, or at least not any glass you've ever seen. It's pink, verging on red, and you stare at it, into it. You feel it trying to draw your mind in, down, falling up, through an endless shaft of flickering, faceting pink light. It's like this weird obelisk sword, man. It's like this crazy orogeny, we're gonna say like freaky deaky magical weapons, man.
Freaky deaky magical weapons, yes.
And I'm here for it.
Same.
I'm here for magic orogeny swords.
Yeah.
Orogeny, not orogeny. It's not an erogenous sword. It's not.
I have a hard time knowing how to say that word. I know, or it's
you know what I mean.
It's an O. Orogeny.
Yeah. Orogeny, origin sword.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'll be cool.
It will be cool. It'll be fascinating to see what's to come. Oh, and he is so angry at her.
Oh, because of Koru.
Even though he knows that's what she had to do.
Yeah.
But he's still mad.
Like, I understand why you did it, but I'll never forgive you for it. It's like, that's fair. But at the same time,
I think that's probably how she feels too.
Yeah.
I don't think she has forgiven herself for that either.
It's also like, you told her to do whatever it took. And she did. It's part of me is like, I understand, like, your feelings are valid of being angry in like any parent would be angry at the person that killed their child, no matter what the circumstance. There's just going to be like a raw emotion there. But at the same time, I'm glad that it's not like a genuine like resentment where he's actually like angry at her and
Sure.
won't interact with, you know.
Sure.
I'm glad that he's understanding of like, but at the same time, I understand why you did it, and I kind of asked you to.
Right.
Which I feel like is what her mindset was when he says that, and she's like, I hate you. Like in her mind, like, shut up, man.
Yeah. I mean, he's not saying anything that she hasn't felt 100 times over.
Yeah. Oh, what her mind is, damn him, damn yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many things. Also, Tonki also confirmed in the Essen chapters the whole like socket obelisk connection.
Right.
And that's where they were created. We also know that Jimenez is like where that was, and that there was a really old dead Civ ruin rumored to be under Jimenez. And it's like, yeah, that's because that's where they were cranking out the obelisks, bro.
Yeah.
And now Alabaster has a crazy sword.
And a crazy question to end the book.
Have you ever heard of something called a moon?
What?
Mind blown, because they were talking about like the first, like when Father Earth turned on the humans and Earth turned hostile because of the humans taking away something from Father Earth. We blew up the moon. Somehow we blew up the moon and it caused the Earth to get all wacky. And this is where we are now.
Crazy. Crazy. Oh my gosh, there's also so much commentary between Alabaster and Cyanide where this is back in the Cyanide chapters, where he's talking about how the Origine created a collar for themselves.
Yeah.
And now they're stuck doing the bidding of Fulcrum. Oh my gosh, and the whole thing when she's summoning power from the obelisk and talking about how it just takes a fulcrum to crush even the strongest. Oh my gosh, the writing, the language, it's all so incredible.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away by this book.
The wordplay.
Oh, it's so good. It's so unbelievably good.
Also got a little lore drop about the Guardians and their origins. Origin. So that story that Shafa told Damia in one of their first chapters about, you know, how the Guardians exist to like take out rogue ragas or origin users, and Alabaster kind of turns it on its head and he's like, oh well, that's what they told me too, but like I actually read some books and stuff, and actually it turns out the origin user who was trying to kill the Emperor was doing that because like his whole family got killed because the Sansa people were cannibalistic. And so it's just like, man, history is told by the victors, man.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It's like, of course there's like controlling information and controlling what version of history gets told to the general public and to the youths, in order to try to justify actions and make you look better than you really are. It's like yes, you were trying to take down a rogue magic user who was trying to kill your emperor, but you failed to mention that it was because the emperor was, and like a lot of the people in the empire were cannibals and we're eating people. It's crazy.
Ugh. Y'all, it's so good. I'm so glad. I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this with us, you've read the book, and I'm so glad that you read it with us. And it's just incredible.
I understand how it won a Hugo Award.
Absolutely. Yes. I was recently buying the second book because, you guys, our next read-along is going to be the Obelisk Gate. We should have said that at the beginning of the episode.
Well,
The Patreons have spoken. So I was buying the Obelisk Gate at Barnes & Noble. And the lady that was checking me out, she was like, oh my gosh, I haven't read these yet, but I've heard such good things. And it's so rare for an entire series for every book to get a Hugo Award. And I was like, I know. It's basically unheard of.
Yeah.
So, very excited to read the next book.
For sure. The
Glad-
Obelisk Gate, you say?
The Obelisk Gate, yes.
Yeah, I just feel like, what do we normally rate these things on?
I don't know. I think it changes every time.
Do we do the
5
Goodreads
stars.
the Goodreads 5 stars?
5 stars for me.
I think this will get a 5-star for me.
No
for sure.
hesitation.
Like none of this 4.5
Nope.
room for improvement. I think
Nope.
this is because not only was it just really, really good writing, but the use of the second person chapters, mind blowing and so unheard of for this type of book.
I thought for sure that this was going to be a slog for me, particularly because of the second person. But also, it's just so much. It's just not usually what I would gravitate towards. But I am so thirsty to start the next book.
Oh, it's the social commentary is excellent. The like on current like world events, and like maybe some people would think it's too on the nose, but I think it's pretty spot on.
I think it's great.
I think that the second person chapters started like it was difficult to kind of read at the start, but it was really easy to adjust for it.
Dude,
like by the end here, I didn't even realize I was reading second person by the end of this thing for those chapters.
Agreed. I just want to point out that this book was first came out in 2015. Wow.
2015. Pre-2020. I feel like so many things happened in 2020 that when I think of things, it's like before 2020 and after 2020. It's like my own like BCE and
yeah. I mean, I have
CE.
I mean, I think we all end up with those time markers throughout our lives, right? But yeah, 2020 is for sure one that is like a universal time marker.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the acknowledgement in the book.
Okay. I have not read this yet, but
yeah, it starts this. I think as a writer, this will make you feel good. So basically, it starts off with how the idea for this whole book started off at this thing called Launchpad, which was this science convention where they got a bunch of fiction writers in a room to try to like teach them actual science so they would get it right in their books and not like misrepresent like real science.
That's funny.
And that's where this idea hatched from. The first sentence is, this fantasy novel was partially born in space. So that's interesting. And, okay, before I dive into this, call back to earlier in the book when in one of the interludes they were talking about how people don't look up and notice what's missing. And now I'm like, it's the moon!
Yeah.
The moon's missing!
Right.
It's so good! Okay, so... Anyway... when she's giving her thanks, N.K. Jemisin is giving her thanks to all the people that helped her. She says, also, big props to my editor, Devi Pillai, and my agent, Lucien Diver, for talking me out of scrapping this novel. The Broken Earth trilogy is the most challenging work I've ever written, and at certain points during the 5th season, the task seemed so overwhelming that I thought about quitting. Actually, I believed my exact words were, delete this hot mess, hack Dropbox to get the backups there, drop my laptop off a cliff, drive over it with a car, set fire to both, then use a backhoe to bury the evidence. Do you need a special license to drive a backhoe? Kate Elliott, another... Yes. Yeah. Kate Elliott, another acknowledgement for being a perpetual mentor and friend, calls moments like this the chasm of doubt that every writer hits at some point during a major project. Mine was as deep and awful as the Eumenazine Rift. So I just think it's really awesome that she was able to overcome that and deliver such a just completely superior on all levels product that like such a excellently crafted story.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that that didn't happen and that she actually
am
got
too.
it published.
She got 3 Hugo Awards for it, man.
Yeah.
And she had to go through that. That's incredible.
It's the creative process, man.
is.
The sometimes the most incredible pieces of art are so painfully wrought. And there's so much literal blood, sweat, and tears that gets put into these things.
Yeah.
And so many nervous breakdowns and so many like mental breaks. And,
Yes.
yeah, so it's just really cool that I'm glad that she was so vulnerable about that and talked about that in the acknowledgement. I just thought that was cool.
That was very cool. Thank you for sharing.
So yeah, we already kind of spoiled it, but the next book is going to be the next book in the series.
Right.
So
we would normally put that at the top of this episode, but
we were just so excited to get into it.
We could barely stand to like hit record before we started talking. So
yeah, the Obelisk Gate, the second book. I'm excited. I already have all 3 because I got the box set forever ago.
I don't have all 3, but I do have the next one, so I'm ready.
Love it. A theory I have for the next one is that there was an ancient advanced society that could use orogeny, and somehow they managed to get that power to the moon. And I think somehow, similar to what Alabaster did to the continent, someone broke the moon. Yeah, man.
What if
Someone
the
broke the moon.
obelisks were intended to create a bridge to the moon?
What if the Stone Eaters are from the moon?
Ooh, boy.
The Stone Eaters are from the moon. Man lands on moon, discovers aliens on moon.
Breaks the moon.
Oh. Breaks moon because scared of aliens. Wreckage from moon crashed to planet. Planet angry because moon gone.
This is so funny. It reminds me of the game Neanderthal Poetry, but
Yeah.
it's great. There's so many. Honestly, I have no idea where the story is going, and I'm so here for it.
You heard it here first. The Stone Eaters are from the moon. If that theory is correct, I get credit. I get my props. That would be cool. Because if they can move through stone like it's water, they can just hang out in a moon asteroid and wait for it to hit the Earth.
Sure.
That's what Hoa was in. He was in a moon asteroid.
Not a geode.
He broke out of it.
Well, what if the geodes are from the moon too?
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You guys can't see Joseph, but he looks like a conspiracy theorist on drugs right now.
I look like that meme of Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with like all the paperwork on the wall.
Exactly. That's exactly what you look like. That's very
the
funny.
crazed look in my eye. Yeah, 100%.
We still don't know what happened to Essen's husband and daughter.
We don't. We never got a resolution with that.
So I hope that is coming.
I'm still not convinced that the father did anything. Because you know what? Hoa talked about how he fought off other Stone Eaters. What if a Stone Eater killed her kid?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff's happening.
Crazy stuff is definitely happening.
So
and she's
I'm
still,
really excited.
I do think that she's missing part of herself. And we just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, there's something about her that's special for sure. Because she can tap into the obelisks. And not all of the Ragas can do that.
Right.
So...
Right.
Yeah, man. Well, the secrets are to be revealed in future books.
Yes, indeed.
So, can't wait for that. So, in terms of when... So, we'll release a schedule for the reading and, we'll announce when that will start.
Yes.
Soon.
Yes.
I don't know if... Because we normally take a little break in January. I don't know if we're going to do that for this, too, and have a little bit of a gap. Or what do we normally do?
That's a great question. We... do not normally take a break from the read-alongs.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I just didn't,
because it's not how it usually just doesn't pan out that well.
Yeah.
So to be determined. We will post the schedule.
I'm fine doing just, the week after next for the. I'm fine to start reading, man.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's just plan on that then.
Okay.
Keep some
Cool.
routine going.
Time to burn another Audible credit. And
Yes.
and just so that I can still listen in the car when I need to.
Yes.
So, very good. Well, excited to keep reading.
Ditto.
So, I guess until next time, go buy the next book, and happy reading.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Later.
Bye.